Good, Michael?
Yeah, it looks like we're good to start. Yeah.
Good.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 21st, 2020 meeting of the Bellingham Select Board. We'll start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those of you watching from home, we have some informative presentations tonight. We start off with mass development. And Jim, I apologize, I don't know who the individuals are who are presenting.
We have Wendy here from Mass Development, who's going to be presenting to you all about the PACE program.
Wendy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you to the board. Thank you to the town staff for inviting me to speak tonight about the PACE program. I know I'm first on a long list of agenda, so I'll try to go over the program and highlight the important points and leave enough time for question and answers. So I'll dive right into that if that's okay.
Please.
Great. So I'm here to talk about a new energy improvement financing program that Mass Development just rolled out 4 months ago statewide to all the commercial and industrial property owners here in the Commonwealth. This will allow the property owners to access third-party financing for improvements at their property and financing that we classify as being tied to the property or running with the land, which is what makes this program so unique. It allows property owners to access capital without increasing their debt profile as they would with alternative financing. It allows them to finance energy improvements for terms up to 20 years, which allows them to look at and consider more comprehensive listed improvements and allows them to hopefully install more energy efficient and renewable energy installations at their properties, increasing the value and keeping their building at a high performing level, hopefully, in terms of the energy efficiency. This program is required in the Commonwealth to have a municipal opt-in for each participating community because unless they opt in, a property owner cannot voluntarily apply for this financing through Mass Development. We have 36 municipalities that have already opted into the PACE program to date, including most recently the city of Boston. We are working with property owners now in terms of accepting applications for the first projects. This is a program that has already been rolled out nationwide for 24 states. Massachusetts is now enabling this program, as I described, to allow commercial property owners to enjoy the benefits that other states have allowed their property owners to achieve through this program. I can stop there and take any questions if you've already had a chance to review the slide deck, which I believe was sent to you ahead of time. And happy to take any questions at this point.
So at this point, what's the type of dollar range of people who are looking for it? Is it 20,000 to 200,000 or is it higher or lower than that?
This is for existing buildings and it's for projects that are targeting a total amount of $250,000 or more.
Okay. And what would be a typical usage? Is it solar or like what's the scope of the need or who would be looking to do this?
So it could be a commercial property owner looking to install solar panels and a new roof on their property. It could also be a commercial property owner looking to do energy efficient replacements like a new chiller replacement, new insulation, energy efficient lighting, new boiler replacements. What's nice about this is with the longer term, they can really look at improvements that are needed at the building in terms of the performance, instead of looking at what we describe as the low hanging fruit or the energy measures that typically have a quick payback but aren't necessarily really vital to the operation of the building. This allows a property owner to really consider capital improvements at their building that they normally wouldn't otherwise be able to afford.
You said that 37 towns were already involved. Is this a first come, first served decision, or is it based on the type of project?
It's actually 36 municipalities. It is partially based on first come, first serve and where we have had projects identified to us. Because we just rolled out 4 months ago, we've been trying to go across the state to educate the different communities about PACE. And from that, we've had many inquiries from property owners and developers about whether or not this is applicable or eligible in their community. And so that's why we've been talking with the different communities like Bellingham and Boston and the others that have opted in.
In totality, is there a cap on this, or are there tranches that are being rolled out?
There's not a cap. I would say it's really applicable to probably 2/3 of the Commonwealth, just in terms of the commercial industrial properties that are out there. And what we're trying to do is just use the best resources we have at Mass Development to try to implement this as quick as we can. But we don't have an unlimited amount of resources, so we are trying to focus on those communities where we have projects.
Okay. Maybe this question's for Dennis or Jim. Are there targeted business in town already looking for this?
So I haven't received any inquiries from businesses in town, but that's not to say that it couldn't assist. We actually have a good inventory of commercial and industrial that very likely could utilize this program in the near future.
So is this somewhere along the lines of Amazon's looking for fuel efficiency? You put solar on the top of those buildings, or how does that work?
More or less. You know, we have a good inventory of, say, like the Dunkin' Donuts, Best Buy, WS Development. All those with very flat roofs. You know, aging buildings. You know, being down in the 80s, 90s variety that could easily upgrade to make it more valuable for them and also more efficient to utilize currently.
Before I ask the question of what's needed from this board, is there anyone else on the board with this question?
I was looking through the slide deck and it said schools. So is this something our town can take advantage of to bring our schools? Solar on the roofs, better lighting, different things along those lines, HVAC, heating, things along those lines. Can we take advantage of it as a municipality?
Unfortunately, the only ineligible entities are municipal and federal governmental entities because you don't pay taxes. And the way you have to repay this financing is via a betterment assessment that is billed in and collected in the same manner as property taxes. So that obviously government doesn't have that.
Excuse me, looking at the 33 communities that you're already working with, I noticed probably the closest one is Franklin. Do you have a sense of what they're doing, just out of curiosity?
Yes, I believe that they were very interested because, as they know, Rhode Island has had a CPACE program for quite a while now that's been very successful. So knowing that you're on the border, I believe, of that Rhode Island and another state that offers this, and knowing that Massachusetts has some of the highest energy costs, and knowing that there are some, they believe, properties that could utilize PACE, especially if they're vacant and they're looking for new tenants, or they're trying to keep those properties competitive in terms of keeping those tenants there. Because if you are a business owner or property owner, one of the main things you're always looking at forward is the energy expenses, and you're trying to keep those low, either for yourself or your tenants. So this is one of the ways that Franklin feels that it can be competitive with neighboring communities in terms of keeping their businesses, giving them opportunities to keep them competitive in energy costs.
Kelly?
Just one question. It's a one-time opt-in for each municipality to be part of this program. Is there any financial ties that the town would have to put into this as well?
There is no requirement for the town to disperse any assessment unless they collect it. You are merely a pass-through for the assessment repayment, as is Mass Development as the program administrator. Our paying agent then disperses it to each capital provider who finances the projects for each property owner in this program. So you're a pass-through and we're a pass-through. The only thing that we ask of the town is the effort in terms of if there is a project that comes up, working with the finance team to bill and collect this assessment for the property owner who's voluntarily agreeing to this financing.
Okay, that's good to know.
Question, please.
Yeah, we did have the opportunity to have a presentation previously, so we got some good information on it. But as far as how the program works, I mean, we certainly would do some publicizing of it locally, I'm sure. But how does the application process go? And obviously, we'd be recording an assessment on the deed, but can you walk us through a typical application process?
Sure. So we would expect that a property owner would develop their energy project outside of mass development. So they would work with an energy contractor to determine the estimate of the costs and savings. They would come with their application to mass development. We would be responsible for reviewing it for adherence to the program guidelines, the statute, and we would work with the Department of Energy Resources in terms of the review for both the financial and technical requirements. At the time of application, we would let the municipality where that project is located know that we have an application we've received that's pending review, so that we could then work with them in terms of determining how this project and assessment could be implemented if it's the first project. If it's a second project, then it's just determining the process that could be the way forward in terms of closing the transaction. So mass development is responsible for all the application review. We don't expect the town to do any review in terms of the application or approval, but we do notify you, we communicate with you in terms of we have a pending project. We let you know as much as we can about that. And then we communicate with you along the way in terms of whether or not this is proceeding to a closing.
And Dennis, what's needed from the board tonight?
I think what we'd like to do is schedule it, if the board feels it's something worth pursuing, schedule it for our first meeting in January, give us an opportunity to flesh through everything that we need to do, and then come back and bring it forward for your consideration at our next meeting.
What's the downside? I haven't heard any downside, so can either you, Dennis, or Jim elaborate on what the downside might be?
The biggest downside is, the biggest concern I had was what type of responsibility would we have if someone, lost their property, and that question was answered again tonight. That's a question we asked last time. There's no liability on part of the town from a financial perspective, but I think it makes good sense for the business community.
The
And
benefit for our business community, they're paying taxes in the town to offer a program like this. Why would we wait?
that's why we wanted to bring it forward, but
I think the question is, why not vote tonight
Why
versus
not vote
January?
tonight? Why wait? Is there any reason why we shouldn't?
Mary, do you have any questions?
No, I think our biggest concern, we had an opportunity to meet with Wendy and the team, and our concern was the logistics of how we would go about actually committing this to a bill and billing it out. But they answered most of our questions, and I think that we agreed that we could work through the logistics as we got closer to having an applicant and a valid project. So I'm confident that we'll be able to figure out some sort of a solution in order to make that happen.
And that was my hesitation, to make sure that our finance people didn't.
That's why I'm
And
asking.
I come in tomorrow and Mary says, well, couldn't you give me another week? But it sounds like she's ready to go. So if she's ready
But
to
I think
go,
based on Michael's comments earlier, I think I might be heading out, so you guys might have to figure it out.
Maybe heading out.
Oh, yeah.
so as long as the finance team's ready to go with it, then I'd say, I don't disagree with you.
Okay. That being the case, I'll entertain a motion to enroll Bellingham in the Mass Development PACE program. First and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, none. 4-0 vote, 1 absent. Thank you very much, Wendy. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you to the board. Happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on our agenda is, Jim, the consideration of the adoption of the 2020 master plan. And I note that both Kelly and Don, you've been an integral part of this, so I'll sit back and listen and I'll fill us in.
Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you for having me tonight. I do also want to recognize on our call today, we have Liz Bertholet and Brian Salisbury, who've been active participants throughout the whole process. And obviously Kelly, Don, Cindy, everyone's been real active here. So I just wanted to run through real quick the 2020 master plan update that is before you for consideration of adoption. This has been a 2-year process. Didn't start as a 2-year process, but as we evolved, it ended up being a 2-year process, and that mostly had to do with the number of people that were truly involved in this. It was really a team effort. If you don't know, the master plan is made up of very specific sections that are identified in Mass General Law. Those being land use growth, residential, economic, circulation, natural resources, open space and recreation, community facilities, and historic resources. In addition, this is the first year we've added 2 new sections for Bellingham. One is land use history, because my philosophy is always, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you came from. So I thought that was a critical section to add. In addition, the implementation goals and strategies section at the end of this. I think this is a key matrix that I've done previously in other communities, and I think it's a really handy tool to, kind of take this large document and bring it down to a usable size to work through for the next 10 plus years. So again, I mentioned it was a team effort here. So the master plan committee itself is made up of a few members of the planning board, a few members of this board, and it originally started as one or two at large. Kelly McGovern was gracious enough to serve as an at large, and then Liz originally started as at large and ended up being a key member of our planning board team once Mr. Pappas left the community. Obviously, the select board, planning board, town staff played all the town staff played a real key role. I think the committee will agree that their insights throughout the several months that we dragged them in to talk about their needs and thoughts for the next few years was very insightful. And I definitely want to highlight 2 members here, Megan Edwards and Robert Larson. Both were graduate interns that were students here in Bellingham, had since left and have been pursuing their graduate degree and came back to assist us during this process. It was a huge help for me, and they were definitely stars throughout the process. Lastly was a consulting group. I think you guys are familiar with MAPC. Early on in the process, we received a grant to help us with the community outreach, and I'll get into what we did, but they were integral to getting it done. So the first section is it's just an intro from the chairman, so Mr. Salisbury provided. Throughout the document are key photos that were provided from the Bellingham Bulletin. The introduction just goes over the basics, the very basics of what a plan is. There's our timeline and how we proceeded throughout. Our vision and value statement, as well as our aspirations, really just talk about what we truly want to be in the next 10 years. These are more kind of big picture than what we drive down as we move forward. As I mentioned, the land use history is an added section. This starts from day one of Bellingham's inception to now. Literally, the last paragraph talks about how we're struggling through a pandemic. So it's from A to Z in terms of land use land history. From there, we go into land use growth, and this starts to drive into the overall narrative here about kind of balancing a quality of life with new growth. And we start diving into that new growth. And as you see, Tim's office was great in identifying all the permits that have been completed over these years. And as you'll see, 2015 is kind of where we hit the switch and started taking off. You see building permits, new residential, new commercial and industrial really started to take off. And one of the key things here is, we all think about the new Amazon building or the new other facility in town, but one of the key things here that I think is a great projection is just building permits in general, not the new construction, but we're seeing a lot of investment in what we already have. So that's a great sign for our community that it's prospering. You're adding new siding, you're adding new roofs, you're adding sheds, garages, etc. It also touches on all the things that we have been doing. So the overlay district, that's going to bring us valuable new development behind Town Hall. And each section is identified with goals and objectives that the committee really did spend a lot of time on crafting the exact wording in each one of these. The residential strategies is the next chapter. And I will say that what's great about the timing of this master plan is it coincided with a lot of other planning processes that we've been doing. So for the residential strategies, we didn't just start from scratch. One, we had the 2010 plan, which helped us set the baseline. But we also have Community Opportunities Group, which was updating our housing production plan in 2019. So we were able to utilize a lot of the data and their hard work to identify the needs of the residents of the community. From there, we dove into our economic development. And again, we were lucky enough to receive a grant in 2018 to start really pulling at what our economic future here is in Bellingham and how we can strategically target areas that we can improve upon to create a diverse economy here in Bellingham. And I think you're actually seeing that now throughout this pandemic. We've been fortunate enough that that we have such a diverse economy that you know, relatively speaking, we haven't been hit as hard as some of these other communities. From there, we start diving into circulation and infrastructure. So this really revolves around, you know, our town roads and our water, sewer, et cetera. One thing that I found in my reading through all of our documents here is, you know, as things change, many things stay the same. And one of the things noted in 1970 circulation plan, and then restated in 1998, which I thought might as well just restate in 2020. Virtually every conceivable system deficiency is found in Bellingham. Inadequate capacity, inadequate safety, inadequate condition, a lack of convenient access between certain areas. Now, these are things that, you know, for 30, 40 years have been a real sore spot for the town. We're I think now just starting to grapple with that. I think you've seen a lot of really good projects recently that have taken our baseline infrastructure and really improved them. And I'm hoping so in the next 10 years, we can continue on that method of essentially leveraging private investment in order to get really good public infrastructure there. It touches on things like our appropriation from the state for Chapter 90 funds, obviously been essentially level funded for the last 5, 6, 7 years. It touches on things like our roads that need repair. I think most of you guys that are on the roads committee have seen this map many times over, just essentially identifying all the roads that are in need of repair. And then it also dives into things like our GATRA system or lack thereof. And again, touches on, just like every chapter, goals and objectives. Next is the Natural Resource Open Space and Recreation Plan. Once again, it sounds like a broken record, but we've already really done some good planning on open space and recreation in 2018. So we were able to take a lot from that. This one was was lifted from one of our graduate interns who helped us a ton in writing this chapter. So that was a great help. I believe many of you got calls from her as she did her outreach and survey. Can't scroll past Dennis too quickly there. So that's a great picture of Silver Lake and Dennis hanging out in the boat. I don't know if that was work hours, but we'll see. And then community facilities. This was obviously all the departments really helping us out, identifying the needs of all of our facilities around town. Obviously, I think we know many of them just right off the top of our head. DPW and others came forward quickly, as well as schools. One of the interesting things about this chapter is we didn't just talk about you know, needing X more police cars or the DPW facilities about to fall over. They'll say, you know, we've looked at each of these buildings and analyzed their energy efficiency and started to really dig into what we could do to improve upon that. And again, that was part of our planning procedures that we did in 2019 to develop a green energy kind of game plan that would help move the town forward. Obviously, the high school is the #1 user, and we're already seeing some benefits from our green community status that's helping reduce some of that energy cost. Continuing on, the last main chapter is historic and cultural resources. And this one here, you know, this has a lot of ripe opportunity, I think. You know, there was a preservation plan done in '99 identifying a number of locations that potentially could be registered on the state register or national register. The town of Bellingham only has actually, I believe, 2 state registered, and those are both the 2 main cemeteries And not even the oldest town hall is on the register. So I think we have a lot of opportunities to improve upon that in the very near term. And then, as I mentioned, the implementation section, which I think is going to play a critical role over the next 10 years. It really identifies all of the goals and implementation strategies identified in the previous sections, but also takes a step forward in identifying responsible entities, specific timeframes, and ranks them in priority. So this goes over each and every one of them, and hopefully it will be a helpful tool for us moving forward. And then just lastly, just all of the surveys and outreach methods that we've done over the past 2 years. We've hosted focus forums. We had a survey that was conducted by over 300 residents. We stood out over at the 300th anniversary, had a good time, had a table out there, met a lot of great people. We had actually kids complete our rock garden, which you'll find, let's see, out at in front of town hall there, but they all did a great job of doing the rock garden at the 300th anniversary. Just it was a really good time and a way to meet people that you typically don't meet. And there was many other ways in which we've engaged over the past 2 years that I just can't remember off the top of my head. But overall, I think it was a really robust process, a rather fun process at times. And I'm certainly here to answer any questions. Anything from the board.
So just a few, how does this go from being a document on the shelf to being a document that is referred to and utilized?
Yep. So I think that's where our implementation section really comes in now. Because in 2010, you're right, that's basically what it was. It's a document that sat on the shelf when I got here. I dusted it off, looked at it, took some of the priorities and tried to run with some actions. But I think this implementation strategy can now start the process of when the select board is meeting maybe annually or the planning board is meeting annually, we can start looking over this implementation strategy and say, this was a priority then, is it still a priority? And if so, Jim, how do we get this moving, or Dennis, how do we get this moving? So I think that strategic implementation strategy matrix is going to be key for each and every board to use it.
All right, so I would ask the board, I mean, knowing when our budget cycle is, when is the best time for us on an annual basis to calendar it?
Beginning of January.
Before we get into the budget?
You certainly look at it. I can tell you developers look at it and they'll come before the planning board to defend their projects and say, section such and such of your master plan talks about downtown district, which is one of the things that Mr. Loviser looked at, because one of the things that we talked about in previous master plans was making the downtown center of town more of a downtown. And people have taken that and run with it, and other projects the same way. When we talk about affordable housing, in earlier documents, developers came in and said, well, your master plan talks about it. So it's important that does reflect the direction we're going. And I think Jim and the committee really did a bang up job.
So you have the zoning board, you have us, you have the planning board, really.
How would
They
the
should be
school committee use it?
reviewing this. They should be reviewing this every January, or just have it there. Hey, someone comes before our board. We have this in the back of our head. This is what we voted on. This is what we want for the town. We should be driving in that direction.
I know we talked, we didn't do it this year, but the all boards meeting or something like that. Is that something where we invite everyone to comment on how it impacts them more as a homework assignment than as we don't want to be dictating the policy, but more what do people take out of it? We don't usually do that until September.
Or there would be a handout that we provide each and every board and say, look at these goals and strategies. And there's something that, is there one or two that you think you could work towards this year?
You mentioned the municipal side in the high school. Is that tied into, right now they're doing a lot of LED work at the high school. So how did that work in relative to this?
Yep, so that part of the baseline energy efficiency data that you saw there, that was the start of how we got identified as a green community. And with that was our first go at getting a grant for energy efficiency improvements. And given that the high school was the #1 user, we thought it was smart to target that facility first. And that's what they're doing. Yeah, right.
They're changing all the parking lights outside, and they had pallets of LED lights that were being retrofitted into the ceiling. What about the DPW facility that we are starting to talk about? Is that something like we add solar to it, or not the existing, but the
Yeah, so
options.
It definitely spoke to the need for
Yep.
new upgrade DPW facilities. Yeah, I don't.
We don't have to get into that.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's certainly one of the things that, if you look at master plans, the first one was done in 1993. And it talked about the need for a senior center. It talked about the need for a high school to address the shortcomings in the high school. If you go back and look at these things historically, a lot of the things that they've identified over the years eventually became reality.
To have an idea, I know in May we have our elections and we turn over boards. Maybe whoever that chairperson is in that first meeting in June or second in June, maybe it's just a review of the master plan for those members. Just, I know we talked about doing the June for budget.
It's a
season,
great time.
but think about that would be a really good time right after we turn the board. So to review it, maybe Jim comes in at each of those meetings and reviews the specific areas for the planning board, the select board, the zoning board.
It's a great idea. Hillary? Notes for June meeting. All right, fantastic.
Idea. You make it right.
Thank you for your contributions.
That's how you make it a living document, you know?
It was definitely a labor of love for 2 years, but Jim has done, he didn't want to sing his own praises, but I certainly will, because he did the bulk of the putting together and organizing, which was definitely no easy undertaking, especially with the pandemic happening and as we were starting to really gain momentum and things were coming together, and then we had to kind of stop and switch gears. But there was lots of opportunity for the residents here to tell us what they wanted between the different outreach and open house. And it was kind of cool to meet all those different people and hear their different concerns.
And you get to do it all over again with the charter and bylaws.
Yep.
Apparently you didn't have enough fun yet, right?
Very good. Thank you. Cool.
They just have, if the board so choose, motion to adopt.
What about the piece that Brian is going to add? Should we wait till that's done before we adopt? I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm just,
Yeah, if you
I
like,
think maybe we should wait till it's complete.
Yep.
And if Brian, I know that you're on, if you're in the midst of writing, you want some review or some ideas, I am more available than I was during this process because of my travel. But if you've got something started, you want to run some ideas by us.
Yep, I appreciate that offer, and I actually submitted a draft to Jim earlier today,
Okay.
and I'd be happy to share that with you and the rest of the members. If I could just pick up just one quick statement on what Kelly was saying, I really do want to commend Jim for his efforts. Once again, he's went above and beyond his call of duty, and this document is really a testament to his effort and his thoughtful analysis and really just getting the job done. And I would also say that we spent a lot of time meeting with professional members of the town's town staff and department heads and community leaders, and it was an in-depth and at times sobering discussions that we had. But the thing that I mentioned this at the planning board meeting, the thing that I took away from it each time is that our town is lucky that we have dedicated and committed professional staff that truly do seem to have the best interest of our town at heart, and they're professional and thoughtful and well-versed in the issues that we face, and we do face a lot of issues. So I think that is a very positive step as we kick off this next 10 years with the master plan.
Echo what Kelly and Brian have said. So I wasn't.
That's not Mary raising her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
Raising
see
your hand,
anybody
Mary?
raising their hand.
Where's that the cursor on the screen?
That's not me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
just
it's
the
like you're-
cursor.
Yep.
The hand.
No.
Right,
Oh, someone waved.
timing wise, that I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily want to. I have the time over the holidays to read this for the January 4th meeting, but meeting after that is the 25th. Is it reasonable to think, Jim, that the comments from Brian will be incorporated and that we can vote and discuss them?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
I don't want to hold it up. I really don't. If we want to vote, I just thought we ought to have it complete before we vote. But if that's just me, if everyone wants to vote on it tonight, that's fine, because it's 98% done. It really is. And maybe Jim would like to have us vote on it because of his labor of love and the work.
We'll get it done
that
in
he's put
2020
into it.
before have it done
Have
in
it done in
2020.
2020. So what Brian's going to add doesn't need to be edited or anything. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. So if we want to vote, let's put it behind us. I'm
I
okay with it.
personally would like to have us vote on it because
Yeah, good.
this should have been done in 20, so I'd like to
Yeah.
see it done
Yeah,
by the end of
yeah,
2020
you know,
when it
there's something you said
should have
for that.
should have been done.
Yeah.
Pandemic, that is
Yeah.
certainly out of our control, but
Make your motion.
this is in our control. So I make a motion
Yeah.
to adopt the 2020 master plan.
Second.
First and second. Think there'll be any further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
I
And can we make it an agenda item for the 25th, 20?
It is a good read.
For the
I
25th, just
have read
for-
it, obviously, being part of the committee, I wasn't involved as much as I would have liked with my travel, but I have read, and I tell you, the history piece, and I commented to Jim how really well done that the historical piece was written. It's really interesting to think back the history of this town.
Yeah.
It really is pretty cool.
If you've never had a chance and you stop in at Charlie's Tire,
Yeah.
Glenn has postcards that go back to 1908, and
Yeah.
it shows all over town. It's a
Yeah.
great, like going into a museum.
Yeah. Pretty cool stuff.
All right.
Thanks.
Very good, thank you. Next up on our agenda is the select board appointment of a vacant planning board position. This would generally be done as a joint session, but I believe that, Brian, your committee is just looking for our endorsement, and then you'll take it up at your next meeting.
Well, we've actually at our last meeting had moved to recommend that Liz be appointed the permanent voting member.
I thought it was reversed, but so we're,
Yeah, we were gonna try and put a joint meeting together, but it just wouldn't work out as
Yeah.
far as the posting goes, but Liz
Okay.
is their recommendation.
It was an informal vote last Thursday because the board wanted to offer their support to Liz, but the formal vote will come Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, as Dennis mentioned, we tried to do a joint meeting this time, it didn't work out.
okay,
I make a motion to appoint Liz Bertholet for the vacant planning board position that'll run through May, or is it May, the date?
The annual election.
The annual election. And Liz, I hope you run.
you have a
So-
second?
second.
Seconded by Ms. McNulty. Jumped ahead of you. All those in favor?
I
Opposed? None? Fantastic, Liz. Well done. Thank you.
the easiest meeting you'll ever have, Liz.
I know, right? Short, and sweet. Thank you.
All right. We have, next up, we have some housekeeping items under other business, the bid award for dead tree removal on various streets. Do we have a total on that, Dennis? I don't have any paperwork for that one. I just,
Want me to read it?
please.
Chairman,
On the iPad.
I move the contract 2020-BTR2, dead tree removal on various streets, phase 2, be awarded to the low bidder, Malik Tree Services, Inc. of Harrisville, Rhode Island, for a total amount. $29,447.08.
Odd number.
Yeah.
Second.
First and seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? 4-0 abatements.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to present the abatements for November 2020. Capital improvement in the amount of $225, sewer in the amount of $331.51, stormwater in the amount of $59.98, trash in the amount of $449, water in the amount of $387.95, for a grand total of $1,453.44.
Second,
First and seconded, any further discussion?
I think the numbers are low,
Nice.
much better.
You're in order.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? 4-0 vote. All right, minutes. Motion to approve the December 7th minutes.
So moved.
Second.
First and seconded, any further discussion? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 4-0 vote. License renewals, Hillary?
I don't have any new license renewals tonight,
Okay, moving right along.
but we were gonna.
Yeah, well, you're gonna
Yeah.
bring up the subway license renewal. You have a memo in there talking about the amount of time it would take to get caught up. I think the number was 8 months, but Mary did inform me today that she has had some conversations with the bank that holds the mortgage on the property, and they are working with the tenant as well. They're trying to assist them to keep them going, and recommends that we do in fact renew the license and keep this business in business. They have been upholding their initial agreement, almost $3,000 a month, and eventually will look to be made whole on the entire amount. But I think right now the goal would be to keep them going, and they didn't miss a payment over the last year. Obviously, they've got to get caught up on current taxes, and as I say, their bank is working, talking with Mary about making arrangements to get them completely caught up.
Okay.
And Mary, they are comfortable that they are paying 14% interest on the current balances due?
That's what they want to come out.
I'm sorry, that who's comfortable paying 14%?
So that they understand that interest is accruing at 14%.
Exactly, and that is why it's a disincentive for them to continue, utilizing us as their bank, which is why the bank contacted me, and I've encouraged the bank to work with that property owner so that they can structure either a refi or some other equity loan at a much cheaper interest rate than what the town offers. In doing so, the town would then be made whole for the delinquent taxes that are due.
So I believe tonight the only thing we have to do is approve the common vic license.
I make a motion to approve the common vic license for Subway, 170 Pulaski Boulevard, Bellingham, Mass.
Second.
First and seconded. Without further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you for making that work, Mary, and anyone else involved. Hillary? Thank you. All right, town administrator's report.
You've got a copy of an extension of a payment in lieu of tax agreement with American National Power, which is the electric plant on Maple Street. We entered into an agreement with them in 2001, 20-year agreement in 2008. 20th year comes up this New Year's Eve. So we've got to make a decision on whether or not to exercise our option, which is a 10-year option to continue the agreement. They are the largest taxpayer in town. We did have quite a few discussions, myself and Mary and American National Power were looking at the possibility of trying to renegotiate it to sweeten it. We have discussed it with a consultant that we've used in the past. I feel that the agreement in place is a reasonable agreement. They are about a $2.7 million a year tax payment, and this will lock it up for the next 10 years. So I think it makes all the sense in the world to exercise the option.
Any other further questions, discussion? I'll entertain a motion to extend the American National Power payment in lieu of taxes agreement for an additional 10 years expiring December 31st, 2030.
So moved. That's great.
Second.
That's awesome.
Yeah, first and second.
Nice job.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 4-0 vote.
At our last meeting, we talked about a delivery license for Your Green Package. Kept right name this time. And essentially it'd be located on Farm Street, looking at up to 6 vehicles, but they anticipate they'll only be rolling 2. That was the conversation that we had. I do have the agreement here. I gave it to you over the weekend to take a look at it. It mirrors the Frozen 4 agreement with the exception of it's a much smaller operation. There is a gift there for the DARE program, and as well as a condition that requires their vehicles to be registered in the town of Bellingham. Expecting a couple, but nevertheless, I think it's a good practice that we get into moving forward. So that would require a vote to accept the host community agreement with Your Green Package and authorize the chairman to sign it.
So moved.
Second.
First and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
None. Dennis, thank you for installing that.
Nice
Thank
job.
you. A couple other items. We are renting some space for a couple of our vehicles that are seasonal, 2 street sweepers and our vac truck for the winter months. I think it tells you how tight we are for space at the existing facility, but if it was non-COVID times, we would be able to pack them into that building. But what the DPW is trying to do is not have the operators jockeying vehicles around. Essentially what they do is they get into a vehicle, it's been cleaned, and they take it away. But if they have to get into a vehicle, move it, then get into another vehicle and move that one, it kind of defeats the process of trying to keep one operator in one vehicle. So that's why we really have the space crunch. We've got a $600,000 vac truck and 2 street sweepers that are relatively new, that are very expensive, that we're storing at a facility on Route 140 for the winter. So if you see those vehicles there, and it's just for the 3 months of the winter. But I think it makes it clear, as did the master plan, by the way, that we need to upgrade our DPW facilities. And I think we all know that. We did a study, I think in 2006 or 7, that talked about the issues. In 2010, we took another run at it, and we'll be discussing some options. I know I've had some conversations with some of you about it and some of the options that may be there. And I think in the coming months, we really need to get a plan together, long range, to make sure that the equipment that we're purchasing is protected, and the people that we have working in those facilities are working in decent facilities as well. So we'll be bringing that forward in the months ahead. The only other item I had for you is the after Wednesday, we are going to be going back for a period of time on an appointment-only basis here in the municipal center. We're not looking at a long-term unless the governor orders it, as they did in the spring. It would be similar to what we did in the spring, but at least getting over the holiday season. Trying to avoid situations where people are traveling. We've had a few COVID issues, as you know, in the town, not unique to what's going on in the community. Our numbers continue to grow in the community, and I don't think it's going to change anytime real soon. So we'll be monitoring it closely. All the offices will be staffed. Will be available by appointment as we were in the spring. For the several months when this all began. So that email or that update will be going out on the town's website Wednesday. Any questions?
Will you do a code red call with that too?
I think we will do a code red so people aren't coming in. But again, if someone does come to the door, we will have the phone numbers posted. So if someone did come and they needed to visit with the town clerk, or they needed to visit with the inspectional services, they can call right there. And if personnel are available, which likely they'll go ahead and schedule that appointment as quickly as possible, if not on the spot. So the idea isn't to cut back on the service, but it's to cut back a little bit on the traffic, especially over the next couple of weeks when everyone's a little sensitive to all the travel that's going on.
Yeah.
We have the electric rate change coming this month, or is that?
I believe it kicks in January, or did it kick in December, Jim?
It kicks in December. It's on a January bill.
Okay. Yeah.
The last time we made the switch took 6 months because mine wasn't transferred, so I just wanted to make sure that I follow up, make sure that.
Okay. Make sure that you're in there. Yeah. That's our municipal aggregation program.
Yeah. All right.
That's all that I have.
Anything under old business?
Just to give another shout out to Tim and what he did up at the Sunoco station, makes me so happy. Thanks again, Tim.
Well done.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I feel like I should go give them a Christmas present.
Parky
Maybe I
Friday.
should give you a
I
Christmas
feel like they
present.
should be giving Tim a Christmas
Yeah,
present.
exactly.
Anything under new business?
Oh, I just wanted to bring up, I don't know if you've noticed, as part of the last meeting, Amazon, I did have a conversation before it was raised. I had a subsequent, again, afterwards, about them driving, they're filling up the gas. They are now, and I've noticed it on a few occasions, they are crossing Mechanic Street and coming from the back. It's not 100% compliant, but
Much
I
better
definitely
now.
have seen it's much, much better. So they have really responded. Sometimes it takes a little bit because the guy that runs the building, Greg, my client, he's not the one that runs the trucks. It's a different company their contract, so he has to meet with them to get things done, but they're very, very responsive. So just a shout out to Amazon again,
Maybe we can send a thank you note from the board, and that way we can reiterate the position.
how important them working with us to mitigate the congestion at that intersection there as you're trying to get into Rapid. So,
One other thing too,
Sure.
under other business. Josie, our senior center director, I was talking with her this afternoon, and as incredible as it sounds, somebody went into the senior center parking lot and cut two catalytic converters off two of our vans, if you believe that. So you'll see them parked at the police station now. I guess you can get a few $100s for them or something. I shouldn't even say that, but I just can't believe that people would stoop that low. So that's the downside. The upside, Devlin's, the restaurant down in the Bellingham Plaza, did a nice fundraiser, and they presented a check for $1,000 to the senior center.
that's really nice.
For their meals program. And they also presented another check somewhere else. I'm not sure where, but they had a nice program going, and they raised some money, and it's, you think it's the other way around. People are raising money to keep the restaurant going today, as tough as they are, but they do some nice things down there. And they also do a free meals for veterans on Wednesdays. Down there.
And Sundays.
And Sundays,
Yep.
okay. So we got some real good things going in town.
Yeah.
But if you see the senior center vans parked at the police station, you know why.
But if you choose, there is something I wanted to bring up. We talked briefly about the vehicle taxes on Amazon. We talked about maybe approaching them and doing just a payment, annual payment in lieu of taxes. Any possibility of being able to do that with them?
Well, the registration, if they're registered here, and we did get the latest numbers, they have gone up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not so much that we have an agreement with them, it's just conversations that we had. They said, yeah, we'll look to register the vehicles in town. But I think we just need to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that their vehicles get registered. I've never heard of, because they're paying registration somewhere.
Right, no, but my
fee
point is,
somewhere.
they got vehicles coming in, coming out, they're constantly moving.
Yeah.
It's hard from an administrative standpoint, I'm thinking.
If they would do
And for
that,
us,
that would be fine.
I'm just thinking, what if we approach them to say,
It makes them pay double, but that's their prerogative to not
you know,
do it
instead of
timely.
having to deal with that, we won't collect excise, but they'll give us an annual $250,000 or $500,000, whatever it might be.
They don't have a choice as far as the vehicles that are registered now in the town of Bellingham.
They still have to pay
60
that.
or 70. It is a fleet, it's not Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon actually contracts it out to a
I'm
fleet.
just
but-
wondering if we could approach them with that idea.
I think that's probably the problem, is that they have private vendors that are running their facilities, and if they're going to have those vendors there, the law says that if a car is garaged in your community, you are entitled to those excise taxes, and if that's $100,000 on 200 vehicles, that's our money.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think.
Yeah,
of a
we
simpler way.
haven't, as I say, we got the latest one. It did increase
How
slightly,
many
not
now?
as
How
much
many
as I would have liked. I believe it's like
Yeah.
67.
See, there's
Yeah.
150 there. There's 150 because they have outside and they are also parking them inside the
Yeah.
gate. So there's about 150 total vehicles there, and they're all.
And they could
over
just
the
pass
map.
that charge on to their vendors and say, if you aren't registering,
Yeah.
they pay it, one way or the other.
Just
You know what, we need Tim Iaccardi on the scene here.
Tim?
I'm just thinking,
Thank you.
what we have with-
I'll go there tomorrow. I'll go there tomorrow morning, all right?
All right,
Thanks, Tim.
We can certainly.
Cindy, I think I need a little backup, though.
I would love to join you on that, Tim. What time are you picking me up?
But only if she can drive the car into the facility.
Yes.
well,
right.
well said.
Yeah, I knew that.
As this is our last meeting of 2020, I think we need to say good riddance to 2020.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to the employees of Bellingham and the citizens for making the best of the situation. It can only get better in 2021, and Happy New Year. A little late on Hanukkah and everything else. Happy New Year. 2021 is right around the corner.
There we go. Yep.
Giddy up.
Yes.
All right, with that, we say good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
motion to,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Cindy's got it.
we'll keep it all open. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night.